Okay.
Are we recording?
Yeah, you're going.
Welcome, everyone. Excuse me. I'd like to welcome, we don't have any board members right now, but we'll be seeing them tonight. Dr. Bag, EVP Kane, Dean Shreve, and Thomas, Interim Dean Meadows, and especially to my colleagues who have taken time out of your very busy schedules to be here today and tomorrow. I personally am thanking each of you for being here. As you should already be aware, the agenda for this retreat is Guided Pathways. Guided Pathways is being required by our Chancellor's Office, and at last year's retreat, faculty determined what we believe the meta majors should be for our college. With that, Beverly and I worked closely together in determining that we needed to have 2 faculty to be the facilitators for each meta major. We asked for a counseling faculty and we asked for an instruction faculty member. With the support of administration and our board, we were able to accomplish that. I want to applaud the faculty who submitted an interest in becoming a facilitator. We had more faculty apply than we had positions to fill. Thank you again for your willingness to take on this endeavor. And I'd like to share a brief quote from an excerpt that Louis Goldstein just shared with me this morning. And it says, when we call someone a visionary, it's usually to suggest that they are some type of genius. We celebrate these people as the best of the best. We look to them as leaders, as beacons of inspiration, and something to aspire to. But getting to that level of success takes a lot of hard work. It can take years of being misunderstood, and sometimes others just can't see the vision that these people are working toward. Some of them are called crazy, others are dreamers. We are all visionaries in this room, all right? And we have visions for our college. Yesterday, we met with the facilitators and shared their responsibilities. We have a lot of work cut out for us, and I know that we will work together to accomplish this endeavor. There may be some hiccups along the road, but that's the norm, and we're still going to be learning through this process. I'm asking that we all need to work with each other as we move forward in creating and developing our guided pathways. Faculty are in charge of curriculum. This is our baby. We need to be the ones to be driving the guided pathway bus. Together, we will make it happen. On one more note, I want you all to know
how much we appreciate each and every one of you. There are a lot of unsung heroes sitting in this room. We see you. And you don't receive enough accolades for all of the hard work you do. But you should know, in our eyes, you all shine.
Thank you. I know, Dr. Bag, I'm probably going to put you on the spot. But would you like to say anything or not? I didn't mean.
Our fearless leader is coming to address us. So
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, I appreciate it. No, this is a working session, and you never put me on the spot. I just want to thank you all for being here. I'm so excited that you're working on guided pathways, and even though it's a framework that the Chancellor's Office is encouraging and they're providing funding, if we submitted a plan. Many of you were part of that work, getting us to the point where we can provide stipends for the facilitators. But what I clearly saw even before that happened was faculty talking about what's good for students and recognizing that we can do more, no fault of the history of the community colleges over decades really of building curriculum, adding courses, but then recognizing with our best intentions of providing more options for students, You know, human beings can only process so much and so many choices. And if we create an architecture, a framework to make it easier for students, they're seeking our guidance from all faculty, counselors, and discipline faculty. If we can come together, start looking at programs and the courses that can come from different discipline areas to create a nice, cohesive, coherent learning experience for students that's very mindful of career opportunities, transfer opportunities. This is what students really need. So we know that all of the colleges in the state of California, and quite frankly across the nation, are engaged in this important work. And I'm proud to know that here at Barstow College, you're committed to it. You recognize the value for students and that you're working together collaboratively to do this for our college and our students and community. So I hope you have a wonderful experience. I know you're in really great hands with Nance and Bev. We've got Kim Anderson back to help you. We've got our curriculum chair. We've got Deans as well. Sandy Penny's here. I'm not sure if Tim is here.
Melissa.
Okay.
And Melissa.
We've got Melissa. Excellent. And all of you here. So I'm going to step away and let you get started, but just to express my appreciation to all of you. And we're here to continue to support. And I'm looking forward to dinner tonight with all of you after to celebrate the work that you did last fall. And this is just really a continuation of that. So thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, Kim, come on up and we're gonna get started.
Already, that's fast.
That fast.
That fast.
Right, we don't mess around. No, I don't like to be up here.
Well, you have to do this.
Oh, yeah, I'll hand out papers.
Am I handing out papers?
Yes, you are. You're helping.
Hi, Beth.
Good morning.
It's all back. Okay. Hi, I'm Kim Anderson. I'm the faculty curriculum consultant here to help and support all of you. I believe I've met some of you last fall when we were going through the course outline of record stuff. What do you have? What do you have? Do you have the red one? Perfect. That's great. One of the things that when we were discussing how to begin this morning session was to talk about guided pathways in a broader context and overview. You have a general handout on your tables from the Chancellor's office, which gives you the high level vision of what the concept is. And so you will also note that if you look really carefully, you don't even have to look really carefully, you will see some of this information in your own college's strategic plan. Goal number 1 in your strategic plan is basically guided pathways when it's talking about equitable student success. So it's a nice synergy there. And so one of the things I thought might be nice, because we were talking about, well, you know, when I was talking to your faculty leadership, they kept telling me, well, we're already doing that, or we're doing this. We've done, you know, well, yeah, we already have that in place. And I said, absolutely, that's the whole point of this. So what the red handout that's coming out right now is a quick look at some of the concepts of guided pathways and where they fall. And you will start to note that Barstow is already way ahead of the game in the implementation of various aspects of guided pathways. The point of guided pathways is integrating this all into a cohesive whole, so it's a strong working machine for the students. That's the idea about all of this. So what I did very quickly on that red handout is over in the left-hand column, those are your strategic, goal 1, strategic, it says plan parts. Those are the parts of goal number 1, what you have. Now, underneath each one of those is in the small print is the Chancellor's Office Vision for Success commitments. And the Chancellor's Office Vision for Success is going to be for the next 6 years or something. And this is where the California community college system is going. And you can see that those high-level statewide commitments are reflected in your local strategic plan. And so that's a nice synergy. That's great. So then when you start to go through how you clarify a path, how you connect and enter into, students connect and enter into a path, how they make progress through, how you're ensuring learning, all of that. Those other columns are showing you what is the detail part of all of that and what that means. At Barstow, but this is what organizations, initiatives, and research has shown could be done by the academic side of the house, the student services side of the house, to work together to create a powerful organizational structure that is responsive to student needs. Okay, so that's what this document is. Then, because I always like to cite sources, that's the right-hand column, and those are all the sources where this information has come from. Some of these are national sources, actually, and some of them are statewide sources for all of this. But one thing, so you can flip through the red and then you can start seeing things, and maybe this will give you some ideas as you move your programs forward, as you move your areas forward in all of this. But then also, if you go past the red part, there are some things that are overarching that have to do, and so I don't have one of the handouts. So on page 3 right there, that gives you some ideas of some of the things the college should be doing comprehensively. So I didn't want to put it in every one of those subsections of the plan parts, but these are some things overall. And you can see when you have an organization as big as Barstow, coordinating the work so that you're not duplicating efforts is very doable in something like this. But understanding what other offices are doing, what other areas are doing, so you can leverage all of this so people you're not doing things, somebody's doing it over here, somebody's doing something sort of kind of like it over here and all of that. That's the whole point of all of this. And knowing what's going on, who, what, when, where, why, and all of that, that can sort of help you out right there. Then the very last page, I let you know what all the citation sources are and what they mean and who's and all of that. Okay? Excellent. Very good. Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that I thought might be helpful, besides as we're doing overarching views before we get into the nitty-gritty details, is to talk about vocabulary a little bit. And so that's what these ladies are handing out right now, just so that when we're speaking to each other, we know what we're talking about. And I mean one thing, but you thought it meant that and stuff, and that can take time, and who needs that, right? And all of that. So I made a quick vocab list that are some basic vocabulary and definitions that are bandied about under the auspices of Guided Pathways. So let's get those out. So right off the bat, as soon as you get this, I tell you basically what Guided Pathways is overall. And I want to highlight the last couple of lines of that definition when they're talking about that. In fact, it's probably the last sentence where it says college students are more likely to complete a degree in a timely fashion if they choose a program and develop an academic plan early on. Okay, so now all of a sudden that's about 5 places in this college that are coming together just to do that, right? Have a clear roadmap of the courses to complete. That sounds familiar. That's going to be a big chunk of today's work. Receive guidance and support to help them stay on their plan and path. There's probably 10 other areas in your college that are going to feed into that. So these are big, broad statements, but they really do tease out into a lot of the components of the college. Okay, pathways. Pathways internally is a way for a student who enters into the college how they get through this college, okay? And that it's clear, coherent, coordinated, structured, efficient path to come through this college, that all the things that are funneling into it to help the student move forward is there. But sometimes people that talk Guided Pathways also say the word pathway, and they mean external from the college. And now we're talking K through 16, okay? And a pathway from when they start school to when they leave the last institution, you know, and all of that. So that can also, and see, that's where I used to get confused, and because people use the word pathway for multiple things. So I wanted to sort of tease it out. This is just my version because I used to be confused about this back in the day and all of that. So we're talking about partnering with other organizations and institutions because we are not an island unto ourselves. And in particular, the community college is one of those bridge institutions. That we bridge from the unified school district to the university. We bridge from the unified school district to industry partners. We provide collaborative work with the universities back down, for reverse transfer and things along these lines. So we have to look at what we do, not in isolation and just look internally, but we have to lift up our heads and also look and see what's happening in the unified school district, what's happening in the regional industry sector, what's happening at receiving institutions, who are our most prominent receiving institutions, public and private, and how do we be part of that pathway for our students. So these are things that we need to think about. So yeah, it's good to look internally and make sure everything is cleaned up internally and all of that, but you also have to look externally too. So, yeah, we're good? Okay, now career ladders, it says what it basically is, which is how you do not want one-offs. You do not want a certificate, oh, isn't that nice, and it doesn't do anything for a student. You always want certificates to lead to something else, either outside licensure, a wage gain, something like that. But you want to put things together again so they're coordinated, so there's purpose. And so once a student gets one certificate, they only have to take a couple more classes and they can get another certificate, right? And they can ladder up till they can get a degree or whatever the end point for that career ladder is. But this is all aligned with careers. And
I just want to intercede just for 1 minute. So for some of us, we reference that to stackable certs.
And
okay, it's the same concept, right?
That's the next one I have on the list.
Okay. I'm right in there.
Perfect. And so you stack them up through a career ladder. So you stack your credentials up through a career ladder. I will say I've talked to several faculty in various colleges, and I guess I'll tell you this. There are sometimes we faculty, we create credentials and they're sort of like feel-good certificates. They get through 3 classes, you want to give them motivation and you give them but it really doesn't lead to anything. And there's been some research showing that those small unit feel-good certificates really aren't helping students. They're just themselves. So you need to think about how you are combining your courses together to give them something of real need to all of this. So anyway, and that's the idea of stackable credentials and making sure that you have an actual career ladder going up. Okay, and then I talk about what a credential is, what a program of study. A program of study ends up with something, a degree, a certificate, outside licensure, there's something tangible at the end. It just doesn't poof, and then there's nothing right there. So that's it. Roadmaps are what we're going to be working on. And so we actually intentionally, visually map out everything for them because as Dr. Bagg was talking about, we have found in the community college that when you have so many choices, it can overwhelm people. And there's a lot of science behind all of this. In fact, I heard one person use Cheesecake Factory as the example, right? Okay. There's way too many choices and it paralyzes you, or you make a bad choice or not an optimal choice, at the time. Does that make sense to everybody? That's what roadmaps do. It doesn't mean it's perfect for everybody. And I'll go into that in a little bit more detail, but it shows an efficient road through the program of study. Then the last one is progress monitoring, because a big component of guided pathways is catching students before they fall. And that means having communication, cross communication on this campus so that we can catch them before they fall. We can, and help the students get the types of supports that they need so that they can do the best that they can, within the structure of the college so that they can get where they want to go and meet their ultimate goals and all of that. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, great. So I'm going to be you when I talk. I'm going to follow this when I talk about pathways versus roadmaps versus blah 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 blah. Okay, everybody good? Fabulous. And just keep this as a reference. That's all grand. No, not yet. Okay, not yet. Okay. They said I got a clicker in.
You will have a clicker.
Okay.
Let me get this back up.
Oh, yeah, they do need the, yes, sorry, yes, they need the PowerPoint. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Okay. Okay,
That's
what do I
your- That's
do?
your forward button right there.
You're gonna be here for a while?
I'll be here the whole time.
Okay. Me and technology, you know how those people with watches and sometimes the watches stop because they got a weird magnetic, me and technology, it's just, I'm giving you fair warning because I don't like it when people say. Okay, so now we're going to talk about, if I'm following the agenda properly, we are going to move on. Oh, questions and, does anybody have any questions? We're doing good? Yeah. So clear right now. Okay, we're doing great. Okay, so on our agenda, we're going to go down and we're going to talk. Oops. Okay. So now we're going to talk roadmaps. Okay. And what you're getting is my PowerPoint so you can take notes on it and all that because I know it's just going to be fascinating. But I'm hoping to provide you with some real life, tangible things to do. Everybody good with the handout? Are you all right? Okay. Oh, look, it worked. Thank you. Fabulous. It works. Okay. So why are we taking all this time to create roadmaps? And that is so it's for students. Everything we're doing under Guided Pathways, we want to think like students. We want to be aware of our student majors. We want to understand the student experience so that we can see the college from their perspective so that we can make it function efficiently and effectively for them. So roadmap provides them with a clear and logical route of progression through completion through a program of study. And you already got the definition of a program of study and all of that. So that's what we're trying to do like that. Many existing components are already built into this institution. It's just coordinating them, leveraging them, right time, right place. So there's synergy going on here. There are some articles, if you want, you just need to let me know. There are some articles, but I put a couple up there right now. There's articles all over the place if you want to talk about guided pathways and you really want to go into the nature of all of this. You just let me know and I will be more than happy to provide that. But one key part of road mapping is before you start road mapping is to verify the authenticity of your program of study. It makes mapping so much easier, okay? So because that has been my experience and that's what everything is showing, that's where I am going to start today. So we're going to talk about checking your programs of study. Now remember, a program of study means that leads to a degree or a certificate, okay? That's a program, that's one aspect of a program, that's your program of study. So that's what we're talking about right now. So I would like to suggest that you do check your programs of study to make sure that they are coherent and structured and all the things I'm going to go through right now. And that's what I call a program check. And so there's three ways you can look at this. There's the official way. That's the first bullet item right there. That is in Title V. Title V, the state of California expects us to have organized sequences of courses that lead to an ultimate outcome. And so, I mean, that's the law. But then there's also a collegial reason here, as a colleague here on this campus, that we want a unified, streamlined vision, a shared vision of what we want to do. And then there's the responsibility to our students to have a decent program of study that will lead them to a tangible outcome and gets them there in the most efficient way possible. So that is what I wanted to start out with, doing the program check. Here is the purpose of the program check. It's, to double check so that it's good for the students and your energies towards the mapping process are well spent on all of this. So again, I would encourage you to go through a program check to make sure they're authentic and efficient, quality, efficiency, and stuff. I would like to highlight the last bullet item right here. And I thought the responsibility for a rational curriculum lies with the faculty. It's not the student's responsibility to have to navigate through a jumble to figure it out. It's our responsibility to make sure it's clear, efficient, coherent, and proper for the students. Okay, so let's talk about how to do this check. The first thing I want to offer to you is coherence, making sure that your program is coherent. This is the what part, what you do to do a program check. It's coherence and structure. So here's the coherence part of this. Is each course contribute to a sequential building of knowledge and skills and abilities? Is it properly sequential? Are the courses well aligned in that program? Are they all relevant? Is there duplication? Is there unnecessary duplication in the learning? Okay. Absolutely, yes, yes.
You mentioned on the previous slide about the purpose of the degree or the program. Where in this is the counselor sitting down with the student, telling them if you go through all of this stuff, you will be able to achieve this, this, and this, and such a salary, and so on and so forth. How clearly defined for the student is the end goal and the end result?
Crystal. It should be. It should be. And once I get through the what, I'm going to talk about the how. And all of this should be built into your programs of study. And this is where SLO assessment comes in. Okay? Yeah. This should be right up front. If your programs are gold, then all that information should be right up front so it's transparent for students, it's transparent for faculty, it's transparent for counselors, because we're all in this together, and the counselors are an essential component of helping guide students, but faculty mentors are also important to do this too. Frontline personnel are important. They interact with the students all the time. So am I answering?
Yes,
Sort of, kind of?
I think this is done more specifically and more clearly as far as CTE, where you have specific certificates and you have a specific end goal. I don't think it's necessarily so clear if somebody's transferring to a four-year school. For example, I'm an art teacher.
Oh.
I find it's probably unlikely a student who comes into art, mainly because we're kind of flaky anyway, is going to sit down with a counselor, and the counselor is going to tell them, well, you know, this is a possible career and objectives. The kid comes in and says, I want to be an animator, or I want to be a ceramicist or something. You know, how realistically is this portrayed? What kind of options are actually there? If somebody comes to me and says, I want to be a potter, I would tell them, well, these are the possibilities, and you're competing with the 99-cent store.
No, all of that should be built into your program of study right up front, so that students understand what they're getting themselves into. You always start with the end goal, right? This is outcomes, right? What is the outcome of that? Well, the outcome ultimately, even if they're transferring, their ultimate outcome is to get employment, right? So we need to let them know way up front what kind of careers are possible, what kind of wages are possible, what kind of opportunities are there in the region. All of this information should be way up front, so they're making informed decisions. This is where you, as a faculty mentor, what you were talking about.
So when I have a student who wants to become a teacher, so when they're going to come to me and you're going to say, well, in the art field, I've noticed that if you look on higheredjobs.com, there's 12 openings per year for this particular institute.
Yeah.
This is what they'll be given.
Yes, it could be. You guys have to decide how you want to do this, but this is a component of guided pathways in that you provide short, medium, and long-term information up front so students can make an informed decision. Okay? Yeah.
I just want to respond real quick. We do have an art history ABT degree, Louis. So if a student actually wants to become an instructor or something, in regards to art history, we do have a program to study.
No, I know the program studies there. What I'm asking is, when they come in and say, I want to take this program of study, you sit down with them and say, well, the likelihood of getting a teaching job as an art history major, first of all, you have to get your PhD because otherwise you can't compete. There are so many jobs advertised or listed in this particular field. Here are some other options: curator of a museum, this, that. How specific do these the possibilities do the students get?
We do all that actually. We talk about the market, we talk about the, what is it?
And this should be on your web pages, you know, and all of that kind of stuff. Karen, I saw you quickly mention.
Yes, so what you're talking about in the ADT arena is really your gateway course, your intro course. These are the kinds of things that are discussed in that arena. And oftentimes counselors will come into the class, introduce labor market websites and things like that. Because usually a student will say, I want to be a millionaire, but then I also want to be a potter. How does that stack? So there's lessons like that that should be built in to the gateway or intro course. And then Melissa has a program that's going to come forward this semester, just so briefly.
How do I get into the program about being a millionaire or a potter?
I think that's where reality hits in that gateway course. And then they can decide, do I want to be the altruistic artist? And I guess I won't be there unless, you know, so.
Yeah, we're kind of looking at mindsets and habits of mind and teaching students different types of ways to think about how they can be successful and help faculty learn some of those aspects from looking at things from a student perspective, what they're looking for in their lives and helping them make those decisions. So those are some things that are
Sir.
Yeah, kind of what we're talking about here, it sounds like you're assessing the market needs right now, 2019. Are there any tools or resources or practices for forecasting?
Yes.
3 4 years out?
Yes, there are. 10 years out. Yes, there are. And this is where your Office of Institutional Effectiveness comes in, and it will be a partner with all of you in all of that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
So,
then I see you.
somebody gonna help us if we're gonna be but like somebody gonna help us with what we're supposed to be telling them in that first, or who's supposed to bring in, or because I mean it.
Yeah, you guys are getting a little bit ahead of me. Yeah, I'm going to walk you through. I'm going to walk you through all of this. Don't. Okay.
We're not going in alone.
We all just take a breath right now. I'm just on slide number 4, okay? And so the enthusiasm and your foresight is palpable, and that's wonderful. Let's just sort of walk through this. Kiri.
Just a reminder to everyone that we do have many career-related resources in the library, as well as things to specific members. We do also have series that are, this is the kind of career you might be interested in if you're this kind of a person with these kind of interests, and we would be very happy to have every single one of your gateway courses come in and explore that material.
Ding, 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 ding. Okay, so let's reel it back a little bit and go back to my very pedestrian elementary walkthrough of all of this. We're back to checking your program, to making sure that it's coherent, right? And these are the things that it's sequential, it's well aligned, and it builds towards a desired outcome, right? That's what we're looking for right here. Okay. Now, is your program structured? Is it properly structured? And so what we're talking about, is there a tangible end result? Tangible, okay, end result when it comes to this. So that means, structure means there is a definite start point, gateway course, a definite end point, degree or certificate, and is it properly structured along the ways? Is it fully transparent sequence of courses? It's none of this. Here's a list of 25 courses, pick 2. You know how in some programs of study, they give you a whole long, okay, what kind of learning experience is a student going to have when they can mix and match 25 different courses? They're going to be coming out, you're going to have all sorts of different kinds of results with students, if you leave it up, does that make sense to everybody? So that's what we're talking about structure. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't have, options. I'm not saying that, but you need to think about this. What is your end goal? Then does these courses get them to the end goal in a properly structured manner for all of that? So then that's the next thing I just want to throw in right now, looking at electives, is some of your programs of study have elective units. You need to think about this. Again, we're trying to go through in an efficient manner possible, right? So if I've seen some programs, not here, but I have seen programs out there that have anywhere from 12 to 16 elective units in a program. What kind of I mean, that's just random learning and stuff. And so that really doesn't structure them to an endpoint, a definite endpoint. I can understand maybe 1 or 2 courses that for elective units, but then you guide them into what would be appropriate elective units to help with their overall learning experience in all of this. Okay? So we've got coherence, we've got structure. So when we're checking our programs, we keep that in mind when we do this. Okay, so your magic, this is working great. Stuff like that. Okay, so now let's talk about the how. That's the what. Now let's talk about the how. How you and your team can go about this, and that's with looking at your mission statement and your program learning outcomes. And so we're back into outcomes assessment and all of that. And that is the point of outcomes assessment, is so that you can assess your program of learning to make sure it's coherent and structured and all of those kind of things. So the first thing I'd like to bring to your attention is your program of study mission statement and what a mission statement should be. And it should be identify the purpose of that credential. Okay, what's the point of me going through this? So you give them the end point with the mission statement. I think it should be simple, direct, and clearly stated. That's just me, because I'm a teacher and I can say something in 2 paragraphs when really 1 sentence would do just quite nicely in all of this. We have again, we're thinking of the student. This is information for the student, okay? So the end goal for a degree, is it further education? Is it going to be transfer? Is it middle skill job? Is it career advancement for some degrees? If it's a certificate, is it you're giving them training for a wage gain? Are you linking to any type of outside licensing organization so that they take your program of study, they get a certificate, and then they can, and maybe your final capstone course is actually helps them with the licensing exam, or something like that, or prepping them for that licensing exam. Entry-level job, further, a career bump step, or something along those lines. So what is that end goal and stuff? I recommend that mission statements should be 1 sentence long. That is just my recommendation. Keep it clean, simple. And if you can't explain what the end point of your program study in 1 sentence, I give that to you as a challenge to see if you can clearly define that there. Right now, every program of study does have a mission statement. So you may want to review your mission statements. It's in the catalog of courses. You may want to review your mission statements. And if you want to update your mission statements, this is where SLOAC comes in. Again, we're talking about partnerships now, right? You don't have to do anything on your own, but this is where SLOAC comes in. She says, smiling, oops, forgot to tell you about this. I'm going to bring this up and stuff. And your guided pathway facilitators, they're going, again, these are your partners in helping you refine if anything needs to be refined or updated. So mission statement is a good start point. Then your program learning outcomes are your next follow-up point. Your knowledge, skills, and abilities. That's what KSA is, knowledge, skills, and abilities. Your outcomes should reflect your mission statement. So you need to be mindful of it. So what are their exit competencies? Those are your learning outcomes. So blah, okay? Honest opinion. Keep it simple. Keep it simple, keep it minimal, keep it clean, keep it direct. So you may, before you get started road mapping, you do your road map, you may want to check your program learning outcomes because I don't want you to go through all this whole mapping process and find out your endpoint is not what you intended. So why don't you check it first to make sure it's all lined up there. Oh, I can talk over elementary kids, no problem, and stuff. So again, but if at this point you determine that your program learning outcomes maybe need to be adjusted or refined, SLOAC committee and your guided pathway facilitators, these are the people that can help you with how to do the magic verbs, write them. Oh, you have 7? No, 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 no. We want to make this manageable. You want 3? I'm saying 2, maybe. Keep your life easy, okay? If you really know what the end point is, then you can find what the crucial outcomes are, and that's what you test. And just as an aside, this is completely off the record. Oh, we're taping. Oh, well, so is that if you have a capstone course, assessment of your capstone course might also be a program learning outcome. 2 for the price of 1. Just saying. Okay? All right. So that's all the what. Now, this is my recommendation. Something called a program description. And this may be helpful for you to develop when you're talking about your programs of study. It's not a description of the entire major. It's for a description of that particular program of study. This is a paragraph long. A program description is about a paragraph long. You combine the mission and the learning, and you put it all together so that it provides students with a little bit broader information about what's going on with this program of study. And then you guys can use this in promotional materials and for marketing and outreach. All of this. So that is something, and then this is where you can talk about careers and job skills, benefits of the credential, what the benefits to the students are, what's the end point, what's the learning that's happening, and what are the benefits of this. So it's more of like a promotional marketing descriptor and all of that for that. When I've gone through your catalog, I've noticed that sometimes you have a mission statement and sometimes it reads like a program description. So you may want to think about how you do this. Yeah, Dan.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay.
You didn't raise his hand.
You mentioned not the major.
Right.
How do you?
Okay, so when you use the term major in the traditional post-secondary sense, a major would be business. But then under business, you would have multiple programs of study. You might have accounting, you might have marketing, you might have management, and those are all programs of study under the major of business. Does that make sense? Okay. So you want to be specific about your program of study, not talking about the whole thing, but that particular program of study. That's what we're talking about. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Okay, so again, you may want to check your catalog and look at what's been developed up to this point, and if it needs any refinements or updates or something along these lines, that might be something for you all to think about, particularly as we move forward. And part of Guided Pathway Design is marketing your programs of study. And if we're talking about partnering with other organizations, and we're talking about the Unified School District, this is one way you reach out to the Unified School District with promotional materials, and you start linking with their academies and their, and things along these lines. So this, in the long term, this is where all of this is trying to develop connections with all of this. And then also in the community too, if we want to get adult learners to come back to, and further their education or continue their education or something along those lines. This is where these kind of things will serve you well for all of this. Okay, we're all good? And you can see I'm still in preliminary. We haven't even talked about road mapping yet. Okay, what I just walked you through is a part of program review, something I'm sure you've heard of. Okay, something you need to be doing. This is part of program review. So this is the why. This is why you're doing all of this. Program review is required by the state, but besides that, it is helping you to devise well-designed, curricularly logical programs of study. This is all part of program review. And the benefit is it makes you, when you have to map out your program for your students, it makes your life a lot easier to go through, and it makes it more understandable. Then it makes it understandable not just for you, but then it's more understandable for students too. So we all start at a little higher level there. So anyway, so that, I want to show you that linkage. So we've talked about SLOs, we've talked about the Office of Institutional Effectiveness, we've talked about program review. These are all things that are already in place, but it's partnering with them so that all of this works together. Okay, so basically what I just told you is this guide for the visual learners here. I provided you with this, and basically what we're talking about here is that if there is any program data, program review, program planning, right? You need to investigate that data. You need to review any information, what I'm talking about right here, reviewing information to make sure, investigating their student experience and the end goals and making sure they're still valid end goals. Again, we want things to be realistic for students. So, you know, looking at, you know, looking at San Bernardino, looking at Riverside, right? I mean, those are major receiving institutions for this region. So looking at them and looking at their programs of study, looking at Park, they're sitting on your campus. Have you ever thought about Park University? They're right here. That would, you know, maybe there's a way that to make some connections there that are productive for students. Okay? And so looking at their experience, looking at their end goals, this is where when you have student major clubs and stuff, you can get a lot of feedback from the students in the student major clubs about their experience and how to you know, and it just gives you another perspective for you to make things work for students a little bit better. And then talking to your colleagues and other stakeholders of your programs of study, and also consulting with them in all of this. It's just not one person, you know, that carries the load. There's all sorts of information you can have. And when I talked about college and stakeholders down here, this is where your CTE advisory committees come in. They provide a lot of good information. Your frontline professionals, your student majors, any regional industry partners that you're partnering up here in the region and or the community, that would all be part of all of this, as well as receiving universities and actually maybe talking to faculty in a department at a receiving university and establishing a relationship with a faculty member there. And so that you get information flow between institutions, things like that. It's developing these collaborations so that we can reduce the inefficiency that typically happens when we don't do this kind of. So we get to this point, and then one thing I want to highlight right here is that you may want to update and coordinate the information. But then you may find that you may have to adjust your curriculum. You may have to adjust your SLOs. But that's secondarily to the work that you're doing. You're not doing it to do that. That may be a consequence of your program check, that you find that you may wish to adjust something in your curriculum, either at the program level or the course level, because you found hiccups in the program. And you don't want hiccups for the students. That's just another barrier for them. So again, it's all because of the students. So then, of course, any of those kind of adjustments and reforms, they will have to go through the proper committee, you know, and doing all of that. Okay, that makes sense? Then we get to road mapping. So that was all prep work. Everybody okay? I know. But that prep work is all under the auspices of things that are already in place. Okay? But I think before you jump into road mapping, you may want to take some time and do a quick program check to make sure of all of this kind of stuff. And have those discussions, not only with your disciplinary colleagues, but maybe with the counselor, the articulation officer, if we have the IE office coming in and with data from the IE office, frontline professionals, else is going to be here today? Me. But again, this is a collaborative effort on all of this, and you're building a team. The deans are here, talking to your deans, getting different, and stuff. So anyway, that's what we're talking about with all of this. Okay? So let's talk about roadmaps then. You all ready to actually talk about these things? Okay. And this, from what I understand, is what's going to be your afternoon work. You're going to build roadmaps. Okay?
Is the point that we're going to be able to build a roadmap if we still have to start with looking at our program description and all that?
No, it depends on how long your discussions go on. It depends on how gold your programs are sitting right now, right? Just depends. But if you're concerned about your program of study, that it's maybe not where you think it should be and you're having discussions and stuff, I don't think it's good use of your time to map something that you don't think is helpful for students. Right? I mean, worst case scenario, right?
I understand.
And stuff like that. So it just depends on what kind of discussions you're going to have and stuff. But I would do a program check before you get started on road mapping.
So Denise, that's a really good question. And we're going to talk about this some today, some tomorrow, but after this is over, in the next 2 weeks, Lisa from IB, Heather from enrollment, myself, Jamie, and Tanisha are going to come around. We're going to make appointments with all disciplined faculty to talk about these exact same things, sort of support the work that you're learning at the retreat, take a look at your program certificates and so forth that we know at this point in our time they need to be reworked, and take a look at how you feel as a disciplined faculty they should be offered in what sequence that will support the mapping work that Kim's teaching. So after this weekend, you're going to receive in the next 2 weeks a lot of support in terms of a group coming and working with you to talk about these very same things, and some that are very specific to each discipline. So I don't want you to feel you're going to be left high and dry hanging when this is over, okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have a concern, again, being an art teacher. We talk about streamlining, and we talk about roadmaps, and streamlining and roadmaps bring up the image of a starting point and an end point and Google Maps, and what is the fastest, most direct way to get there, and how long will it take? My concern as an educator is that can be very, 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 very narrowing. Like you have blinders and you're going from one point to the other point. You never get to see or learn about all the other stuff that's going on from the beginning to the end. And my concern and my fear is that when we get into all this streamlining and road mapping, we lose sight of the fact that education and success comes from experience of a broad range of support disciplines. For example, we have the issue where you have science and math majors who can't speak to other people who are not science. My older brother, for example. And then you have art students who have no necessary logic or specific practical ways of doing things. Is this guided pathways going to limit the students in their education, or are we going to redesign our programs to make sure business majors take art classes and art students take business classes? Because they need all of these things, otherwise we remain in this fragmented kind of education.
You're absolutely right. And we are not limiting the scope. Because one of the things, if you're going to be conferring a degree on a student, they need both major courses, but they also need GE courses. And that breadth of experience comes through the liberal arts education, which is your general education curriculum. That is not going away. That is still here. Yeah, well, as one.
I have a concern.
You know,
I have a,
and
I have
so,
a fellow,
I hear your
I have a
concern.
fellow teacher who's a philosophy teacher, and at his school, they're getting rid of the entire philosophy. And in these kind of things
These
traditionally happen.
And so that's why I would encourage people to collaborate, teamwork, think about your student experience. One of the things you'll see me say, because I haven't gotten to that slide yet, because you guys are, again, ahead of me in all of this, is that the roadmaps are for a certain type of student. You know, you can't make, and so individualization will happen on the student ed plan. But to go back to your concern about scope and stuff, that the GE the general education is not going to, I don't think the state of California is going to say no more GE, that it's not going to and stuff. So that is still going to be there. Now, do you guide the student as an art major in each area of what may be a handful of relevant GE courses in relationship to an art history major? You can choose to do that, but that doesn't mean the student has to take that. So we're just making recommendations to the students.
And in this guided pathways, we can work together to design or redesign programs so they are wider in scope instead of narrower in scope? Or are we limited to this state?
I think you shouldn't be looking at as wider or limited. You should be looking at the end goal. What is the purpose and the point of it for students? Then you could backwards map to figure out what is needed. You don't go in saying, I want to make this program wider. That isn't guided pathways. Guided pathways is, what is the end point? What is necessary for the student to get to that outcome and that goal? And then you develop the program that gets them there in an efficient, structured, coherent way. So you have to look at this from the end point, and then it's called backwards mapping, like that. So it's that.
So, Louis, you're asking really good questions that were some of the angst at the impetus of the Guided Pathways movement. So there's several good books that I'm going to ask for, give them to Kiri to put in the library. Because once you read some of the foundational thoughts on the Guided Pathways movement, it starts to make sense and align with everything Kim's saying. But you to be able to grasp it, you gotta have some of that. For those of us that have been in education for a long time, it's very different for the community college. But there's a lot of books, so I'll give those to Kiri for check out for the library.
Sir.
Go back to the notion of coherence. It's kind of a general question. It's coherence for whom? Which stakeholders do we want this plan to be most coherent for?
You want the coherence to be for the end goal. You want the program to be coherent so
it has to be coherent to somebody.
Students. You need to think of the students going through the program of study, and you want coherence for that student to be able to go through and build. I take class A, then I build upon that learning with class B, then I build upon that learning with class C, and it all makes sense, and I'm developing the knowledge, skills, and abilities. So when I leave and I get that credential from Barstow College, it means something, right? It's going to give me to my next step or something like that.
So presuming it makes sense beforehand, as you're planning, that's the student season, you go over it. What if it stops making sense 1 or 2 semesters down the line to that student?
Well, that's why we have counselors. Okay, and that's where counselors come in. But I will say, faculty and counselors do have insights and experiences about what a coherent program of study should be. So if something doesn't make sense to an 18-year-old, we may have a better idea of what is necessary to get to that end goal. And that's where we were talking about the gateway courses and talking to them and getting a realistic sense of the world and what's, what capabilities are and all of, what's realistic and things along those lines. So you're talking about coherence in relationship to the end goal, that you have a coherent program of study, that you're not just doing something random, you're throwing in something randomly just because for all of that. Sir.
Good morning, Kim. This is my concern from the front line. I came on faculty here in 2014, so 4 years, we still have students that are still taking classes right now. But I remember when I first came on. The guided pathway, it sounds great. I'm looking forward to the implementation, but my question is this. When we take a student in brand new, we give them an ed plan from hello. We're already guiding them what they should be doing for when they're enrolled. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And so these ed plans already put them on a pathway to success based on a 2-year plan, or a 3-year plan, a 4-year plan, a 5-year, whatever the plan is. So I'm confused on that. I will speak to students who have an ed plan, but they've had several ed plans. And through the ed plan, classes get canceled because we don't meet the minimum enrollment. So then the students are just led into a filler class so they can keep their financial aid. So this gets all over the place.
I know, and that happens all over the place, okay? And this is where enrollment management comes in, and something called predictive scheduling. And all of these are components of guided pathways, and these are things that the research has shown has been problematic for all community colleges in the state. So I think you've heard of enrollment management and stuff. And so there are enrollment management practices that need to be implemented to avoid that circle the drain situation where the student is a perpetual student because of this. This is where, when you do your roadmaps, you have a solid program of study. You have great roadmaps. You know who your student majors are. Then, believe it or not, with the data, when we're talking big data now, and this is where your IE office comes in, you can do something called predictive scheduling, where you actually know how many students are going to need a class in that spring semester, so you offer the right amount of sections for those students. So this is all part of the administrative part of all that can be done, but you have an enrollment management committee here that is working on these things. You're starting into doing some predictive scheduling, but you're only as good as the knowledge you have about the students and where they are and where they're going. Our job is to make sure the programs of study are solid, that we get to those students up front, that we talk to them about where they want to go, and they have to take a responsibility of making a decision sooner rather than later in all of this. That doesn't mean they can't change their minds. They can, but then we want to minimize the impact of them changing their minds as much as we possibly can. And that's setting up all these supports and all these things that we're going to be talking about as we get into this a little bit more.
So this will lead me to my next question. So we take this student brand new, and it's like just one student. And do we have a system in place that tracks their success? Because the collaborative conversation must take place, because predictive outcomes or predictive whatever it be, so many students are completing whatever courses. So now we're having collaborative conversations saying, hey, we got to guide this student to the next.
Yes. Have you heard of Starfish? Okay, these are all things that are starting to come into place, but these are all pieces of guided pathway, and you are right. This is what should be happening for our students. We need to have an integrated communication system so that we can send a student to the library who needs research help. We can send the students to the learning center who needs help on their first paper. When somebody's been missing class a little bit, and the teacher is sort of, we go into Starfish, we link Starfish up, then a counselor, boom, is your wingman doing that kind of stuff. And having those talk, so we catch them before they make a mess of it. We have our career centers, our career counselors come in and talk to your gateway courses so that students know sooner rather than later that, oh, this is not what I thought it was, even though I thought I knew, because they always think they know and stuff. And so then we do this. By developing our meta majors, we want to make sure that when they transition, they don't start here and they end up over here. If they're going to change, then they just sort of change over in this area so that they understand who they are, what their end goals are. All of this, yes, all of this needs to be put into place.
Okay, so this leads me to my next concern. We heard earlier Melissa speak about the growth mindset, fixed mindset, or whatever the mindset is going to be. Obviously, we all exist in this world of growth or fixed mindset.
Yeah.
So how are we going to connect all the levels of community people with the titles have a growth mindset, but not stuck in necessarily a fixed mindset, focus on the outcome of a student. And that's a collaborative conversation that's necessary.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to hear about the mindset program, but I want to make sure the mindset program is going to be growth mindset based on forward momentum and not meet to meet to meet. On the side of
So
what
Melissa has
mindset should
something,
be.
yeah.
It is growth mindset, habits in mind. We have people coming to do all of that training this semester.
But is this training for students or for
No,
faculty?
For faculty.
Beautiful.
It's all training for faculty.
And then we're involving the K-12 too, so we're starting that kind of synergy.
It's gonna be for K-12 faculty, counselors, and for our faculty and counselors, yeah.
So we have two other people. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Paul?
For now,
Thank you, Melissa.
because this is ongoing.
Yes.
Denise and then Lewis.
I just have a quick question about the roadmap and the Gateway course.
I'll get to it.
Okay.
You didn't have, I know.
I mean, you keep mentioning it.
I know,
so
I know,
thought
I
maybe-
know,
Okay.
I know.
All right.
So,
Basic assumptions, okay, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds goal. I mean, that's a big assumption that these kids even know what, a lot of these kids even know what they want to do. I mean, I'm 72, I don't have a clue at this point. How does the guided pathways apply to the people who we might call the bumper sticker, all who wander are not lost? That they don't have a specific end in mind, they want to go to college, they want to learn, and now they're being shuffled into a particular guided pathway. How is that dealt with?
So we don't want to shuffle anyone into a path that they don't want to be, right? So part of our agenda tomorrow is that the faculty who are driving this bus are going to have a discussion on how we're going to assist those students, how we're going to, the choices that we're going to offer them, and how we're going to help them.
How we're going to listen to them.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
So just kind of along what Lewis said, the way I interpret this, Ron, is that instead of like previously, we've all been concerned about our own major. Do you know what I mean? Like you're worried about enrollment for art, and your students are not worried about social sciences. But I see this as an opportunity to be much more collaborative. So you're always telling me this is why you need art, right?
I'm worried about Josh. That's why.
Yeah, because he's going to be that person who never makes any money, but that's okay. You have a passion for this is why people need to take art, because if you're going to be a law enforcement, this will help you. See what I'm saying? Like I know that you all need to take a social class to help you. So like it's not just my major though. Like I know as a nursing major, you darn sure need to take this. Law enforcement, you know what I mean? It wouldn't matter an art major too. So I see it as more of a collaboration, getting us not pigeonholing anybody, because that's what we talked about all last year, was that we don't want to do that to students. We don't want to say like, you need to go to college, you need to go 4 years, this is what you need to do. But it seems like it's more of a collaboration where you can make points for your class and you go to the different pathways and be like, look, here's why they need this or ethics class or whatever, and I can go to them and say, here's why you need this social class. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's more collaborative versus us, even when we did program reviews before, it was like, you did your thing and I didn't get input from any other major, that's for sure. So it seems more collaborative, but again.
No.
And
ditto.
You're right.
And I think that's why we're working, that's why, especially why we asked to have faculty counselors on as a facilitator as well as an instruction faculty person, because they're going to help us to understand that if I have a child development major, that this makes more sense for them to take these courses as an elective versus if it was maybe I'm going to go like a welder or even an art major, it makes more sense. They would need this instead. So I think that's why we really try, so that we are collaborating, so that we're still giving students choices, but we're hoping that to
Focusing
narrow the choices.
Just focusing them, and everybody needs focus.
Right, because when we give them 30 choices, that's hard to make a decision, especially if you have an interest in 20 of them, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna just help to guide them, still offer them that creativity to choose for themselves, but guide them more in a narrower, not a narrower tunnel, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Okay.
As a fan of the interdisciplinary, and English fits so well in all places. And so, you know, we've got our fingers in everybody's discipline, right? And I think that looking at it from this perspective and saying, yes, you want to be an art major, but yeah, you need to maybe take a biology class. As Bev has mentioned before, if you're a biology major, an art class or drawing class would be ideal. As someone who is, you know, you're gonna need to write well and read well in all of your classes. So, you know, I do see this as a very interdisciplinary endeavor. And I think that collaborative conversation needs to go on across all the disciplines is vital. And I think this is the beginning of that. And so, you know, I'm worried that people are getting too, but I think that this is the beginning of those conversations. So I'm really excited that people are here ready to do that.
And you guys just talked about my next slide, which was, it's team. This is teamwork, okay? And so I just blah, 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 blah. We got facilitators, articulation officers, we've got slow out, everything we've been talking about, right? We're triangulating to make things as best as we can for our students. Boom, we're done with that slide. Okay, now, standard roadmap. Roadmaps are a standard roadmap, and you have to have a starting point somewhere. A roadmap is not for every individual student. So where our starting point is going to be, so we can do this, is that for a degree, it's going to be 4 semesters, right? We want them to get through in 2 years in a perfect world. So your roadmap will be 4 semesters long. Okay. Most efficient number of terms for a certificate. Okay. That's what you're shooting for them. This is going to be for what I'm calling a generic student. And I don't mean that in any way except as an informational way. And the generic student is just going to be a full-time student. Okay. They are entering at college level math and English. They're going straight into college level math and English. Don't laugh at me. This is what we're doing. We got to start somewhere. So this is where we're going to start. They have no transfer credits. Counselors, they have no transfer credits coming in. They're starting from scratch here at Barstow. And they have chosen their major, or they know their career outcome trajectory. So they know that this is the pathway they want to be on. Okay, so that's going to be the student in our mind. It's going to be our perfect student, okay? And we're going to start there, okay? And that's what we're going to roadmap first, is a perfect student, okay? So, oh,
excuse me.
Sure.
Said, Mr.
Sir.
Most efficient. What are our criteria for efficiency?
If it's a full-time student, that's a minimum of 12 units a semester, right? I believe, and for financial aid, right? At least 12 units and things like that. So in our world, when you're doing a certificate, math, it's at least 12 units a semester. And so what's the most efficient way? It depends on how many units how many units are in your certificate.
So is the students' learning factored into the efficiency criteria?
We're assuming that the students are learning as they go through the classes and they're going to pass their classes. We make that assumption. No, because with all of our other fabulous supports in place, they will be doing this. So they won't have to be retaking classes ad nauseum. Okay? Thank you. All right, so for efficiency, we're not going to put the word or in a map. You can take this class or this, or no. You can take it in this order or this order. No, just do the order, do the sequencing, for this student that's in your mind, okay? Pick specific courses. Did I put you? Yeah, I did put you in here. When you counselors and faculty are talking and you're talking about sequencing the GE areas, you do have an option of identifying in each GE area a handful of courses, as opposed to the 20 or 30 that are already listed there. You may want to tease it down to a more focused number, and you have the opportunity to do that. Okay, so that is all. This is what we do for efficiency: basic tool, direct route, blah blah. Okay. Okay, now let's do handouts. Now, do we need a break? Do we need a break? Because you know, oh, you don't know. I will be. Good time for a break. Then, this is your teaser about what a roadmap looks like. So how long is the break? 5 minutes? Okay, 10.
Remember, guys.
Okay,
this
so
is a work
my watch says it's a quarter till, right? Quarter till-ish. Okay, so just before 11. Okay, 5 to 11. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Double A? Yeah, you can take it back. Yeah. And just replace the battery.
Oh, sorry, is it loud enough for it to pick
Oh,
up?
yes.
Okay. Yeah. Sit down like, oh, here it is. I could. Okay. There's a pie. Okay.
It's like 10 cars. Semis is really bad. Oh yeah. I'm a both. But today was fine.
You are not bothering me at all because you are providing a valuable perspective on all of this, and I want them to understand me and understand how they can structure and it's hard to do these challenges. You are. No, you are. Good for you. And, so, and that's valuable. And that's valuable. And that's valuable. And there will be and that's why especially if it's Absolutely, and that's where you want Isn't that the truth? It is. Okay, let me know if you want some. It's very
Do we have backboard?
But it's the camera.
Yeah, nothing happened.
Right ball. Cameras? Kids are.
I'm plugged in already.
Kids are right.
David's not focusing either.
Yeah, I have to go really close.
I did not know. So you yeah, I just want gateway courses are the first entry level experience. I mean, but to the other courses that are in there, should it be? So it's repeating before they came in. So they don't know intricate stuff about management. So then they're taking, so I'm thinking, I don't know. This is exactly you sequence them out whether they and that's what I mean by coherence. All right, don't worry. Okay. Thank you for I am so glad. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. And Okay, let's get started.
purple again. Yeah, it's on. You gotta press it once. It's the push button.
Beverly. Bev. Denise, can you go get Beverly for me, please? Can you go get Beverly for me, please?
Or we can get somebody else who can help distribute. Oh, is that it? We need to distribute. Okay. But we have to ask them. Okay, now, here's all. So then we study, then I got ADT. So we have math and can't get this out to everyone. So we have to ask them. So let's do this one. So, okay, got it? Okay.
All right, so as Beverly is going to be handing out these forms, I'd like to go back to when we were supposed to talk about the overview of the retreat that I
I'll probably go for gold.
totally overlooked. And I would like to do two things. One is to announce our facilitators. And so, and then to let you know, and I believe most of you, no, you didn't get this, but, and the assigned meta majors that were given to them. So for arts and humanities, we have our counseling faculty, Lilia Franco. Frank, if you could just kind of stand up and so everybody can see who you are. And then we have our instructional faculty, Susan Nylander.
Can we just have them come up front?
Okay, sure, come on up front.
I love you, Susan, up here.
And then for our business and industry, we have our counseling faculty, Avi Lialofi, and we have our instruction faculty, Denise Pasley. For our allied health, we have our counseling instructor, faculty member, Richard Alvarez, and we have our instruction faculty, Brett Sage, but I believe that something came up, an emergency came up, he's not going to be able to make it today after all. For our public services and health services meta major, we have our counseling faculty member, Emily Garrison, and we have our instructional faculty member, Gustavo Bento. Go pink, I'm under you guys. And then,
is that how we're gonna play this?
well, you were rooting over here for Susan.
I was rooting for everyone. We're gonna play Go Team. You can go Team. You got this, girl.
I'm going to.
Because you know, I know who's up next.
And for student support.
Oh,
come on, Jill. We have our instructional, on purpose. On purpose.
Don't worry, Eduardo. We got this. Don't worry.
I have for our student support, our.
Come on, Melissa, get up here.
Our counseling faculty is Melissa Madison, and our instructional faculty is Jill Murphy. And then, of course, we do have our amazing STEM,
That's right.
which is
With Eduardo.
Our counseling instructor is Eduardo Vasquez, and our instructional faculty is Beverly Rowdy. Okay, so as we're passing out, so I'd like to just first, everybody, we're going to be working with these guys. They're going to be guiding us. They're going to be supporting us. They're going to be nurturing us. They're going to be hounding us. Oh, don't put hounding in?
No.
Okay. So anyway, a lot of good things are going to happen with everyone, okay? So, but they're the leads for the meta majors that your discipline may fall under, all right? And with that, I would like to announce when we met yesterday, we also talked about a few new things that are happening at our, so they're not on your list of guided pathways. We have what Ms. Jennifer is going to be working on a communications ADT. Yay. also looking at creating, would it be an ADT or just an associate degree for human biology?
Human biology is a local associate.
Okay, so we're working on creating a local associate for human biology. And then, of course, we did move kinesiology under allied health. And we also looked
And I
at-
heard no objections. Okay, good, moving on.
So, and then also under student support, we also now have added, we've removed ACSK and SDEV, we put in tutorial learning support under them. Okay, so as well as the other things that were already identified. So, and as we're going along and we're looking at things and we're looking at everything that we're offering, there could be another degree that pops out or something that we realize that we should be offering perhaps. We can always revisit that. This does not mean that this is the end all, okay? We're growing, we want to grow. Again, we talked about vision this earlier. We want to spread out, all right? But anyway, okay. And I think my part's all done now.
Yeah.
So Beverly's going to be asking, those of you who are working on ADTs or you already have ADTs, please raise your hand because you're going to get one form.
That's what these
Those of you,
handouts are for.
right, and those of you who are working on,
Let's just do the ADTs first.
oh,
So who
we're
has
going to
an
do
existing
ADTs first. So
Or is one of
Jennifer,
these new
raise it.
ADTs
You're going to be
or
working
your
on one, okay?
An ADT means an associate degree for transfer. So those need to go out. You should get a map and a direction sheet.
I've got the direction.
Yes.
Yes, you can go. Yes, you can go back and sit down. Thank you.
ADT first and then.
Yeah.
I've got directions.
That's a really good question, and yes, Beverly's gonna probably.
Only for ADT. ADT people, you should have a map and a direction sheet. Let me know when you're ready to move on. Okay, facilitators, you got it? Okay, we got all the ADTs out? Are ADT people settled? Okay, now I need help. Okay, anybody with a local associate's degree, that could be an AA or an AS, or if you're thinking of creating a local associate degree, here's the maps and the directions. Would you like to help from Beverly? Because you guys already have.
Raise your hand if you have a local
associate degrees that you need to have.
associate.
Yes,
I got it.
Yes, there's something now. Here are the ADT directions.
and they're both trying to zoom in also.
Nance may have extra copies. Let's see. What do you guys think? That's associate. Local.
No, she.
Bad half. That's a local associate's degree. That's gonna be. Associate degree people.
So raise your hand. If you go sit at that table. You'll be with that.
I haven't gotten. I have to take these out. Okay, now certificates. You're working on a certificate of achievement, not the little 6-unit certificate, but you have a certificate of achievement. Okay? Certificate? Nan's house. Anybody else have a certificate here? You do? You have a certificate of You guys need certificates? Certificate of achievement? Okay. Certificates of achievement. You guys have certificates in your program? In your discipline? You have certificates in your discipline? Thinking of having certificates in your discipline? Yeah, okay. Certificate, yeah. Okay, does everybody have the maps that they need? And then here are extra AT and transfer. Okay, let's get started. Okay. Everybody has the documents that they need. This is what you're going to, this is a way you could be doing road mappings, and you should be using this in the afternoon sessions. I'm going to walk you through it so that you understand what a basic road map template that we're going to be using is like. Starting at the very beginning on your template, page number 1 is what we've already covered. Basically, it's your program check. Your mission, your program SLOs, and your program description. Next, down on the line, you will find that your degree plan totals. These are where you're going to start totaling up. Calculations are a pain. And this is why you need several people to recalculate and double check yourselves. Just a little friendly advice and all of this, but ultimately you want to get all your sub-calculations and your grand total and have everything match up. And so you're doing the work for the student. That would be great. One of the things that Denise mentioned before was about a gateway course. And this is, and you will see if you go down, it's either on page 1 or sometimes it pushed to the next page. There is where you identify your gateway course, and the description of a gateway course is right there in the grayed out area. It is a foundational required course for your program of study, and it should be successfully completed in the first 30 units. I would even go so far as to say this is probably a course that should be in the first semester. Okay, sooner rather than later. Overall, they say get them into the first year. I would encourage you, if when you're road mapping, you identify that gateway course because it's going to have all of the foundational knowledge. It also says this course should include some transfer and or career awareness content in this course. This is like the first course in the sequence that you want the student to take. That is considered your gateway course. We want to make sure students get to these courses up front, that they have information about the program of study and about where it will lead them besides the content area in this course. We want them to be successful in this course because it's the first step on their journey into that program of study. So if there are any special supports that are necessary for this course, you need to think about that. And you want to have those type of collaborations with the tutor center. I just heard about the tutor center, or about the library, or about who knows what. This is where you are going to build those in so students start off strong, they get all the information, they get all the supports they necessary so they start the program of study in a strong manner. Everybody okay with that? Okay, so then when you flip it over, now you have what's on the board, okay? So let's talk about the map template here. If you're mapping a degree, there will be 3 parts to your map. Your first part will be sequencing your major courses, the courses in your major, in the major. The second part will be sequencing your general education areas. The third part is what we are officially calling progress notes, but these are nudges that you give the student every semester to remind them of things they should be doing to keep their progress going, besides just passing their classes. So this is a holistic. So for a degree map, there's 3 parts. For a certificate, there's only 2 parts: sequencing your major courses and providing progress notes or nudges to keep them moving forward so they ultimately can be conferred that certificate. If you look at this template, the left side of the template is your sequencing part. The right side of your template is your progress notes or your nudges. There is, believe it or not, a thick back line right there that is dividing these into left and right halves for that. Does everybody see that? Okay. Questions about the layout of the template? Okay, so the crux of your work then is this afternoon is to, once you've got your program check all done, life is good and stuff like that, you now need to delve into the courses that you have listed in your major, and you have to determine the order in which they should take them. Okay, and sequence those courses through the 4 semesters. Then you're going to need to sequence the GE areas. And this is where your collaboration with your area counselor comes in, because they will have insights that you don't, and faculty will have insights that counselors don't, and we have this cross communication, and life is good and all of this. So then sequencing your GE areas, and we will be providing you with catalogs. You will have access to the internet if you want to go on assist.org to see what's actually real and not real and things like that. This is all the work that you are doing on behalf of your student majors to do this. Yes?
So, this is a question. With a gateway course, you currently have a course called Student Development 1. Maybe this is a question that you need counseling. That is considered our introduction to how's life. The gateway course.
Is it required? in every program of study,
No, it's not required.
then it's not a gateway course.
That's interesting. So this means, so what do we consider a course then?
That is a standalone course.
So it's
That is considered a standalone course, but I did notice that that course is on your local GE pattern. Do you also have it on the CSU GE breadth pattern? Did you get it approved for that?
It's on the lifelong area.
It's in lifelong learning?
Yeah.
Bingo, okay? So then you can then encourage the faculty in the, that are mapping, that they may want to consider adding that as an option, a GE option.
Beautiful. We have a course, it's a great course.
I know. Guess what I teach.
It's a great course. I'm glad to hear that. So I have a big sign up for lunch.
Okay.
So Paul, as we're moving forward, these are the conversations we need to have,
Okay.
okay, with all areas, all right? So, it's a good question that you bring up, but again, this is a conversation to have across all disciplines, all meta majors, of how we move forward with not just that class, but maybe a few others, all right?
Okay, very good.
Yeah, of course, I'm kind of new to your state again, but in California, how many units do you need to get an AA or AS degree?
60.
That's like
You have to have at least 18 units in the major, and then there's 40 some for the GE, but it has to have 60 units minimum.
So earlier when you were talking full-time 12 units for financial aid, that's not going to cut it for people getting.
I know, there's the flaw in the system.
Well, so I wonder if we're going to do this as a 4
Okay.
thing, we need 15 per month.
At least.
Don't worry, Chris, we're STEM, we'll do 15 per minimum.
Come on, girl.
In the next century, we're gonna have.
There's also summer too.
Okay, so these are some of the things that you're going to be talking about. We are going to map them for 4 semesters, okay? And so I'll show you my example, and it's going to be up to 16, 17 units a semester to get them through. And this is where then broader curriculum conversations need to come in about unit creep. I know, let's throw it out there and let it flop around on the floor right there and stuff like that.
What does that mean?
Unit creep is when you approve a course that is, like for example, in GE, each of the GE areas, the courses that are in that, they say to fulfill the course requirements, minimum 3 units at the university. But at the local community colleges, they may up that unit value to 4 units for that course or 5 units for that course, when they'll only be accepting 3 units. Then the students, and this is where you start getting more units. And it's the same thing with your major courses, because you have to start looking at your courses because you're doing major prep to go to a university, those of you, right? And so you have to look at what they're requiring of their lower division requirements and looking at their unit values and all of this. Okay. Okay. So also something else that needs to be on your radar. If a course has a prerequisite, you need to embed that prerequisite into your map, and that adds more units. And we're trying to get to a 60 as close as we can. And I will tell you, I've done enough ADTs, I can't get any ADT to be at 60 units because of all of this, stuff like that. So look at, when you're looking at your courses, double check the prerequisites. If there is a prerequisite required in any of your major courses, it better be, and you put it in your map before the course, you're doing the legwork for the student. So nobody is confused about this. Okay? Yes, dear.
So if our gateway course is the prerequisite for all, say our English.
Technically, it's an informal prerequisite entry into that program of study.
Right, so it's
See?
already kind of built in.
But I don't, I'm sorry. I don't see the student life as being a prerequisite to business. I see it being a prerequisite, a GE course. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and I see it as that, but not necessarily a prerequisite to the pass. under business.
And these are the choices the discipline faculty need to make when they look at all these courses and how you sequence them and where you put them in. But a gateway course is in your discipline. A gateway course is the first course in your discipline that you want them to enter into. Okay?
I just want to remind everybody that today when you're working on these maps and we're using the current catalog isn't accurate to the work that you did last semester. So some of you removed prerequisites. So make sure that you're remembering that when you're mapping so that you don't just look at the catalog and go, oh, these are prerequisites. You got to go back to remembering why you removed them and what you removed. And for very few of you added, that if you added a prereq, it's also not reflected in the current catalog, online or in print. We just haven't updated yet. We're still, it's a whole system thing. So just remember that.
So if we need a memory jogger, we should open up the Canvas curriculum shell to the Board of Trustee approved file.
Yes, yes.
And use that file for our course.
Very good.
Ooh, good idea. Okay, good? On the blank. Okay, here's one filled out. This is not Barstow College. So don't play with the numbers or anything like that, but it gives you a sense of what it ultimately will look like. And so you can see that you have a category. You need to identify this course. Is it a GE course? Is it a course in your major? Is it an elective course? Where is the gateway course? And then, is this a double counting situation? Which means a double count situation means you have one course, but it counts for the major and it's on the GE pattern. And so you get 2 for the price of 1. There are 4,000 rules for double counting. And this is why we have counselors. Make your eyes roll back in the back of your head and to do this properly. And so this is why you need to collaborate on this. And this is one way we can get some units down if you have a course in your major that is also on the proper GE pattern that you're using and all of this. So anyway, you do your category. The only way you list your name is that you list the major courses by the subject and the number and the title and how many units. If it is a GE course, you just list the area. You decide which areas come first. You will notice I have math and English in the first semester. Research has shown that getting them through math and English in that first semester increases the likelihood of they will complete. Because what they do is that you need English for all the other, and they always put math and science, sorry, the researchers said they put math and science to the end because they, they're all hard, okay, and all of this, and then they get to the end, and then they don't want, and they get senioritis and all of this, and then they take the hardest, dumb, and you wonder why they don't complete, right? And so this is where we help them. Yes.
I just wanted to read. It's not about it being hard.
Yeah.
It's the fear factor
Yeah.
of math. And
That's
it's
right.
for a lot of theory.
Proof
It's theory. I just do theory. I didn't even like that.
Excellent. And so that's true. So speaking of math, there's been a boatload of changes in English and math because of AB 705. It is important for our math department to establish something called math pathways so that our majors know which math pathway they should take for their degree or what kind of math they need for a certificate if that's going to be thrown into a certificate. So typically, there is the traditional algebra to calculus pathway for STEM. But now there can be a statistics pathway. Then what I've seen other colleges do is something called quantitative reasoning, or maybe applied math, and having courses that are equivalent to the learning. And it could be in math, or it could be outside in another discipline, working with the math department to develop. I've seen something very common is business math. And if it is approved by the powers that be as an equivalent course to that math pathway, it could be done. I've seen electrical math, things like that and stuff. But again, talking to the English faculty, talking to the math faculty about what is the appropriate math course for your majors to have would be a great benefit. And then I can also work with the math department to help create math pathways if you're so inclined at this point. Because math and English, you got to understand, you have a unique position on the campus, not only within your major, but with all the other departments too. So you're wearing two hats, so to speak. So here again, if you are double counting, you identify that it's a course that is in the major and which area in the GE pattern it covers. So you have all that information there. Here's your gateway course. You identify your gateway course, the first one. You put down your unit values. I think that's about it.
What's the next column? Note category.
Haven't gotten to that yet because I got my big dark line right there. So I'm only talking about the left side.
That's okay.
Okay, I know he's egg and yawn. He's egg and yawn. Okay. Does that? Yeah.
Quick question. Is there as much variety in English pathways?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the
Is there
question.
as much variety in the English pathways?
I think it's English 1A.
Well, 1A is our gateway.
That's it.
I mean,
Yeah.
the pathways. So
No.
We're looking at the literature courses?
No. For GE, they need a comp course, and you have English 1A.
We have 1A
And that's
we
it.
have 1C. If they're transferring, we have 1C, which is critical thinking.
But that's for I get C and
Right,
all of that.
right.
So here again, one of the things so we're good about sequencing your major courses and prerequisites and all of that. General ed, again, as our first toe in the water into road mapping, again, trying to coordinate this. For those of you that are using the associate degree for transfer, let's just use the CSU GE breadth pattern for that. Okay, and so you're going to go into the catalog and you'll find those options and and you use that to build this map. Counselors know what I'm talking about. Yes?
It's not in the catalog.
Yeah, I found it.
Not the most current.
Can we get copies of it for everybody?
Copies of that this afternoon?
There you go. Okay, now, and this is where I give too much information. Technically, an associate degree for transfer can also use IGETC. Okay? I know. But let's just start with CSU GE breadth first. And then if you really got it on a roll and you want to actually do a map with IGETC, then you can do a map for IGETC too, okay? But let's start with CSU GE breadth for the transfer degree. Those are
We need to do mini steps.
Yeah. But I noticed later on you talked about this would be one of those specialty degrees, right? That you're talking about. Okay. Then for those of you with the local associate's degree, I noticed that Barstow has 2 general ed patterns. They have an occupational and a non-occupational general ed pattern. This might be something you guys want to talk about in a higher level curriculum discussion about why you guys have 2 GE. I know why basically you have 2 GE patterns, but if there's a way to simplify these local GE patterns, that might be beneficial for student edification.
And, Emily, did you not make printed those out, so we'll have those for after lunch, right? Yes.
Okay. But right now, for those of you that are going to map your associate degree, you're going to have to pick one of those GE patterns and stick with it and use it. Okie doke?
You suggest that you do the ABTs first?
No, everybody's going to do what they do. Oh, you mean like if you're...
Yeah, if you have ADTs and certs and everything.
Do the ADT first, because that is very prescribed and you don't have much wiggle room, and that will give you a warm-up, so to speak.
Question.
Or if you're anticipating in doing an ADT.
Is this a good time for me to talk with people about working library tutorials and their library work into their program, or would that be better this afternoon?
Probably a little bit later on. Let's get them into the road mapping first. Yeah. Okay. All right. Any questions about that? Okay, what's next? Okay, so we've been talking about GE. So here's GE. I already put on your associate degree for transfer, I already put all the areas for CSU GE pattern in there. For the local degree, I picked one. I can't remember which one I picked. I think it was the non-occupational one, I think. So I picked one degree. Again, your counselors will know this. So what's going to happen if you go back to here and you say, okay, I want to put area A1 in the first semester. It's a GE course. Then you can leave it at that, or what I'm recommending is you go to the table, that's your GE table, you go to area A1, wherever that is, you look up all the courses that are there for a student to choose from, and you identify the courses that you think would be best for your student major to provide them with a comprehensive learning experience in this program of study. A lot of courses sort of blend. In fact, who was mentioning, they were just, Susan, I think, was mentioning about that student that was just said.
I ran into a student this morning who's in my 1C class. She was on her way to her psychology class, and she said, he's talking about so many of the things that you talked about in class. And I tried to remind her that, yes, you take enough GE and you start making those connections. And it's all connected.
So that's what we're thinking about now, is what would be the best connections for your student majors in your program of study that would have that kind of synergy going on between these courses. And this is where you need to look up these courses. You need to go talk to the discipline faculty about their courses. Learn what's available. Paul was talking about SDEV, you know, and finding out about these things so that you can figure out what you would like to recommend to your generic student.
And in addition, this is where your facilitators, our counselors, come into play too, because they're going to know also, and they're going to help us to guide us, as well as if you're choosing between these four, I would select maybe these two. They may recommend it. Ultimately, it's going to be collaborative effort of what you think is going to work best for your students, but they're the ones who are more knowledgeable with all of the courses that are being offered as well.
Okay. We good about the blank template? Okay, here's one filled in. Again, this has no relationship to Barstow, but it gives you an idea. You can put in, and you can put, and when you go back, you will see it says insert information here, add rows as needed. So, you know, this is just a basic template, but if there's only like 2 rows there and you want to recommend 3, add a row. Okay? For all of this. So if you go here, you identify your units. Are there any prerequisites that you need to be aware of? Because then these are the things you have to build into your map to make sure that they can get into the courses in the right order. And then there's an area for notes or anything like that, reminders to yourself, so that you can you can't keep this all in your head, you know, and all of that. Recycling.
Well, our fabulous counselors.
Yeah.
And that's the point of all of this. This is going to help the counselors, because this is a generic roadmap and it's for that generic student. And that may be good for a handful of students, but then when they get the individualization, it'll be like a riff off of the roadmap when they go and visit the counselors. But the counselors at least have a baseline then to work from, because they know it was a very well thought out, you know, map for all of this. And then they can look at the student's individual circumstances and then riff off of that and do their magic, you know, to make it even work better for that individual student. Okay? Everybody all right? Sure? Let me see what's next. All right. So there, for the degrees, there is an area for electives. Certificates do not have electives. You do not provide electives in certificates. You just give them all of that. And again, I will caution you, this is only to get them up to 60 units. And there may be some degrees that you're right at 58 or something like that. So this is where you talk to other discipline faculty. Do you think a 1-unit PE activity course would be a good break because you're giving them 17 units in one semester, and maybe you want them to have balance in, wellness balance in all of this? Maybe you're a local degree, but you like the idea of that student experience class, and maybe you want to recommend that one as an elective for your student majors in the local degree. So, but this is only to get them up to 60 units so that we can confer a degree. And there shouldn't be more than 2 at this stage. My suggestion. Okay, so let me back up. So what I just talked to you about was the left side of the map, the sequencing side of the map. Everybody okay on that? Right side of the map, Bev and Nance, right here. Progress notes, okay? That's it. Yeah, they just need. So the right side of your map then is for you to provide little nudges for them each semester. What are some other things they need to do to support their work in the classroom or outside of the classroom that would be good for them to do to keep them rolling? So there's no oopsies in getting them through the program of study. These are in 2 separate categories. These can be academic progress notes, or they can be student services progress notes. And I am giving you a handout of suggestions for you to think about. So here you need to think of the holistic student and not just the student taking the class in a classroom context. Every semester, what do they need to be able to position themselves to take the next step and keep making progress up through completion? So the first semester, so for example, and you identify, are they an academic note or is it a student services note, right? So academics is anything supporting the academic and instructional and learning program. So for example, this one said use the Math and English Center for help. So you have a learning center, you have tutoring, you have computer commons, I don't know what else, but there are support services to do this. So you have a particularly tough class that has a lot of writing in it. You want them to take their first homework assignment to the center to get it looked at and edited so they know how to write for your class. I have a friend who's a history teacher, and he's got a very specific way of how he likes to have his students write his history papers. Well, tell the writing center so that they can support you, right? If I know there are certain majors that like APA citations as opposed to MLA citations and things like that. Well, students just don't know these things. Even though there's that little button in Word, they still don't know these things. So then maybe this is something you develop in the Learning Center, and you develop a handout or a module or something like that they can go through and learn this so they can be more successful in your course. What kind of support do you need in your course to help them besides what you can provide with direct instruction? And then we build these things on the campus and we tell them, this is what you need to do. You want to be successful in these classes? So in my suggested thing, I even put down, attendance is important. Because I teach another class where attendance is really important. I want to tell them up front, hey, attendance is really important this semester. You've got to prioritize your education, your college going and stuff like that. I thought I saw a hand.
Here.
Sir.
Is this only on-campus stuff or things like visit museums, galleries, studios?
If those are required by a specific course, that would be in your syllabus, and that would be all in there. And that's not, and stuff like that. If you want to I would think if you want to, The only thing I could think of that would go along with that is that if there's an extraordinary materials fee or something necessary that semester, that they have to buy a lot of stuff because they're taking a special chem class or something like that that's required, and there's a big material, something big that they have to do, that should go in there. But that is more course specific and all of that. Now, okay, so student services, that's all the other stuff. Okay, so you can think about their wellness, you can think about, right off the bat, declare your major and visit your counselor. Establish your ed plan. That is your expectation of your first semester student major. You want them to declare their major officially. You want them to sit down with the counselor. You want them to create a student ed plan in that first semester. I think that should be automatic in all of these, but that's up to you and stuff. So these are the kind of things that you give them these prompts so that they do all of these things. Every semester, do you want them to visit your counselor? Then put it in there. When do they apply for your certificate? When do they file for your certificate? Put it in that semester so they remember to actually file so that they can get that certificate. When do you want them to do a grad check on this? Do you want them to visit the transfer center? Because if you have an ADT, I would think you would want them to visit the transfer center and start planning which universities they're going to and doing some research on that. And if there's something special programs that you want the transfer center to know about so that your majors will know, this is something that you can then work with the transfer center to build those kind of informational sources and back and forth, and it could be in the transfer center. You can have the transfer center come and talk to your gateway course, things along those lines. It's up to you how you want to, integrate all of this. Somebody had mentioned that these are going to be big units every semester, because it's only 4 semesters, it's going to be big units. So you may want them to take a summer class instead. Tell them, enroll in a GE during the summer session. So that gives them, instead of taking 18 units here, they'll only take 15 units and they'll take that 3-unit GE in the summer session. You prompt them this way. Now, if you do that, again, this is predictive scheduling. You need to make sure that that department is going to be offering those courses. If you say, take your major course in the summer session, you have to guarantee and talk to your dean that you can and will be offering that course in the summer session, because the students are going to believe you when you write this stuff down. Does that make sense? All right. Now, I just sort of did that off the top of my head, but what you all have here on your direction sheet is I talked about your program check again. And I'm going to highlight making sure if you're aligning with some type of outside agency that you make sure it's an accredited outside agency. And I've got a link here. And of course, it's in paper and it's not in, but it actually does link if you put the pointy finger on it. It does, but I can get you that. I can get you that address if you need to. So the template overall, we talked about all of that. ADT or AD or your certificate. I talked to you about prepping, sequencing, and your GE if necessary, and your progress notes. And I've given you some basic directions on how to accomplish that segment of the roadmap work on this. But I sort of gave you the hit the highlights version of this. Okay? You all right? Can you imagine students? Can you imagine students doing this on their own? They have been. They have been. And this is why when we get into it and you can see the complications of it, this is why we want to help them out. Okay? All right, so we've gone down to the GE. Okay, so we get to this point, you now have roadmaps for your programs of study. And I think we have that as a handout. Look at you. Okay. So now we're looking forward. You have these roadmaps. one of the things you might want to think about is how you're going to implement your roadmaps, how you're going to get these roadmaps out there and inform your students. These can be actually really great marketing tools for you to pull majors into your program and stuff. So anyway, that's what we were talking about here. Once you've got your roadmaps, now you got to think about program planning, okay? When you're implementing this could be part of your next year's program plan. How you're going to implement your roadmaps into the things and what kind of work you're going to be doing for your program. This aligns beautifully with program planning. So the roadmap can get you started, but now how you're going to implement it, how you're going to work it, and stuff. And so if we get to that point, I've got stuff for you on that point too. Okay. The other thing you may want to think about is the arrow that's going down is that, and that's the college's webpage. I know the college is building web pages for each one of your programs of study. So we can think about how we want to design your web pages, because there are certain guided pathway design features that go into college web pages along with all of this. And so this is where you can get, anyway, we've got templates for that too, and all of that. Okay? So again, so we get to this point, but then we can start to look forward too. This is not the end, this is just the beginning. And so that's what I'm saying here. Next steps are implementation, program planning. There is also something called SLO mapping. Where's Missy and Jennifer? There, because we started to talk about this. And there may be some synergy with SLOAC about doing some SLO mapping at our program levels and stuff. So this may be something SLOAC wants to do in all of this. So this is going to give you a good jump start on all of this and thinking about this. And let me caution you, you're not going to go through this once and have it done. It's an iterative process, okay? So you're going to go through it, then you're going to look at it again, and then you're going to rejigger it a little bit. You're going to talk to somebody else, and then talk to this. Oh, then maybe I need to. Okay. So honestly, take note. That's for the facilitators. And so don't expect magic. It's going to take thought and a little effort to do it properly, because the quality needs to be there, because students are going to rely on these things. So we want to make sure they're solid. How long does it take? I don't know. It depends on you. It depends on your program. It depends on where you're starting from and all of this. So there really is no timeline for this. We're going to get it up and running now and see how it all plays out and what other kinds of supports and you guys need, what kind of conversations you all need to have for all of this. And see if we do this.
This process, does it cover just local degree or both?
That's transfer, local, and certificates. Any program, a program of study is a transfer degree, a local degree, or a certificate of achievement.
Okay. So I just want to kind of piggyback just a minute on what Kim just shared. And I didn't even have it on. Oh, I did. There, as of today, there's not a definitive time frame. However, there will be something put into process as we start moving forward again. But
I said we'd be done by next week, but no.
well, okay, but anyway, but no, so I mean, this is something, again, we don't want things just slapped together. We really want a lot of thought put forward to it, because these should be in place for a long time until we get directions to make changes in the future again. Okay, once it gets put through curriculum and everything. But it's not due next week. It's not due 3 weeks. There's not, that time frame's not there yet, but there will be something later.
Bev, we expect you to have yours next week.
You could. And that would be amazing to have as a role model then, as a template for the rest of us to work off of. But again, I just wanted to share that part. There will become a time frame where there will be a time frame laid on us, okay, that we do have to have this.
the associate of human biology. We got this.
Right, but there's nothing yet today, okay? So know that we do need to be working on it. We do need to be vigilant doing it. That's why we have our facilitators. They're gonna be nudging us and guiding us and making sure we reach some milestones here as we go forward, okay? All right. Ooh, okay, okay, good. Let me see, where are we at on our agenda? Emily, come on up. Do you need Api to help you?
No, it's just a couple minutes.
Okay. Notice how Api, I was volunteering there.
So after lunch, creating these boards.
Do I need to put something?
Yeah, maybe. So every department has a board created for them. So whatever your what your study is, like what you're teaching, you're going to have a board, and all of these have been placed in the B classrooms. So once we get to the classrooms, we're going to separate you by meta major. There are going to be 2 meta majors per room. We haven't decided which rooms yet. I mean, I know the rooms, but we don't know who's going to be in what room yet. So we're going to have that decided. But this is currently what's in the catalog. So on the left side, it's going to say like if you have a local degree, a certificate, or an ADT, and we also have career preparation inside of our catalog. All your GEs, okay, so all of your classes have been printed out individually. So if it's not down here, it's just because it didn't fit. So you're gonna have a little envelope to the top of it. And then all of the GE patterns, there's so many different ones. That's what I was explaining to the counselors earlier, is that it's a lot of classes. All of your classes are involved in there. As a counselor, after printing out everything in every single program and having it spread over an entire classroom on the floor, it was a disaster. So it really will give you guys an idea of like what the students are dealing with, what we deal with every day, trying to put them on your correct pathway. So you'll see your classes in there as the GE part. But this is your opportunity.
You've already set the CSU GE breath.
So there's boards with CSU GE breath, local degrees, occupational, non-occupational. They're all there. So this is an example of what we're going to be working on for the next couple of hours after lunch. Okay, so hopefully everybody,
and they Velcro.
Yes, and they Velcro. The ones in the envelopes are not going to Velcro, but honestly, there's not enough space. You're going to have to lay it down. You might have to be on your hands and knees and pattern it all out. The counselors know exactly where everything goes. You're going to get a copy of your program from the catalog. You're going to get one of these sheets so that you can see what the students are looking at and where your classes fall, okay?
And so you can use the template in conjunction with this. You know, some people are more kinesthetic learners and stuff. And if you're more of a visual learner and you just want to work straight on the template, because ultimately this is going to have to be translated to the template, okay? But if you want to get started on the board and then start working on the template, or you just want to go straight into the template.
Well, the board should give you a nice, low-stakes way to facilitate the collaborative discussions we need to be having on the GEs that you're going to be adding.
Yes.
Right?
This is a good example. Like Nancy has a lot of things in the catalog, but she has a local degree, an ADT, and then she has level 2, 3, 4, and a family daycare certificate. So all of those classes are going to be in her envelope, and then she'll be able to work out all of those patterns. And this is where you can like fix your program. If you see there's some type of error, the counselors know what classes run and which ones don't run. Those are barriers. We'll have Post-it notes. So you can like make little, you know, oh, I noticed this or I noticed that. And let's put the Post-it notes on the board so that we can kind of start working together and see what's going on.
Right. And as Kimberly was sharing earlier about the certificates need to lead somewhere, or the degrees, they need to lead somewhere. So each of my certificates lead to a permit on the state level. So when the students complete the certificate here at the college, then they're able to apply at the state for that permit. So I've aligned my courses based on the requirements that the state requires. All right, Denise.
So if our certificates don't lead to a state or something like that.
Your certificates lead to your degree though.
Oh.
Right? They lead to something. I'm just sharing.
No,
because I have 5, so it's like I wanted to share the reason I had that many.
And for those type of things, that's great, and that's the question you have to ask, is the
Right.
certificate, if the certificate's just leading to the degree, is it necessary?
Okay.
Is it necessary?
That's kind of what I was.
But
getting at.
besides something tangible, like Nancy's talking about, does it lead to a bump, like,
Does it lead to a job perhaps?
you know, or
Okay.
some type of wage bump
Right.
in a specific industry?
Right.
Okay, and that may not be outside licensure, but
Or-
it still is something tangible.
Or a job promotion.
Okay. But it has to be something objectively, again, not just say, well, yeah, you can go to your boss and tell him you need a promotion. Nothing that.
But for some, I know for myself, this last fall, I had several students who completed one course or two, sent me an email and said, Miss Nance, I got promoted because I finished that class. Okay, they had that completion. So that was exciting. Some got jobs. She finished her what amounted to is certificate level 4. She applied for a position and she's now a site supervisor at the facility that she works at. So those are the things that are accomplishments for our students. Okay. Good. Okay. So before we go to lunch, I just kind of want to end, because then after lunch, we're going to go directly to the B building. Well, Beverly and I can share with you where we're, well, I don't know if I can't share. I don't even know who's where. Emily will share with us. We're going to be in the B building, but I do want to end this. So I want you guys to walk away from this morning with encouragement to be creative. Creativity is often associated, and this also kind of is a paraphrase from the article on the introduction that Lewis gave me this morning. And I just really think that this has a lot of trueness to what we're doing right now. Creativity is often associated with artists rather than scientists. However, both fields require critical thinking and inventiveness, as I think almost all of our disciplines do. Sometimes art, as in other disciplines, can be incredibly technical. Ada Lovelace would probably say it could have, that it could lead to something that is incredible. And I think what we're going to be doing is incredible. Just a moment, Paul. She believed in something that she called poetical science. She suggested that if you separated art and science, you could never fully understand the essence of an idea. She didn't let her passion for art and science divide her. Instead, she came to understand that there was value in using both at the same time. When you look at the world with many points of view, it can lead to real innovation and create true potential for the future. So as we are developing our guided pathways, we need to keep in mind the creativity that we have in developing them that is best going to sustain our students here at Barstow College and lead them in that path to success. Well, thank you. So remember, we're going to create, invent, imagine, and we're going to try new things. And we're going to make mistakes. And we're going to ask questions. But at the end of the day, we're going to get it done, and it's going to be amazing. The pathways will be meaningful, and they're going to lead to certificates and degrees, and our students will be successful. And with that, let's go have lunch. Oh, and thank you, Jim. Oh, Paul, I'm sorry. Yes.
As we lead into lunch, I would encourage everyone to think about the first hello and impression we make on our students. This gateway class, I believe, already exists, Student Development 1. Audrey and I actually co-authored that course in 2015 to make sure it's articulated. So if you haven't been exposed to that, I would encourage you to hopefully look at our catalog, maybe the description is there. And if they're not there, I'd be more than welcome to come by and see the scroll blue as why that class is so important. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. It already exists, might as well relabel it. What we're going to do to make sure it moves forward. That class really exists already.
Right.
And it's the same hello to students who come on campus.
Paul, we're looking at, that could become a gateway. We have to, as a whole, we need to discuss that and make that determination. So, and I don't know that, I believe that counselors are expressing to students that that is a wonderful course to take. So,
However, it is not going to be a required class. That's not a gateway course.
not at this time, Paul. Not at this time.
Begin with end in mind. The first things first. And that's our students.
That's right. Thank you. Liz?
Pretty much every student should take that class.
I'm sorry,
I think that more of a library restriction on it.
Yes.
Go others.
Yes,
Go
and
ahead.
if,
Can I just
I thought I
clarify a
said
little
thank
bit?
you, Kim, but I guess I got overspoke,
So
so.
the gateway course is in the major. So we can require them all to take at 7, that would be awesome, but the gateway course is actually the gateway to a major. So it's topical. So if I can just clarify.
So-
Right now, go ahead.
I would like if everyone could give a round of applause to Kim for a very good job of not only explaining all the hard work we have to do, but the fact that she is available for questions too. So our facilitators, if something comes up that you're not real clear on, we can reach out to her for clarity so that again, we're not muddling our way through this. We really want to make sure that we are on top of it. All right? Okay, so if everybody, let's go have lunch and enjoy. And then after lunch, we'll be going into the B building and breaking out into our meta majors.
Just exactly what you said.
I know.